To prepare the frame, locate the third and fourth factory holes. I think you can see the depressions here in my blue tape. Draw a line between the centers of the two holes, and then come in about 15 millimeters and drill a 3/8 hole 15 millimeters in from the edges of those holes. These will be for plug welding the nut strip in place so that you don't have to worry about it moving on you. Okay, at this point I've got the holes drilled in the bottom of the frame to plug weld the nut strips in here and here, and I've cleaned up the frame so for welding in those two spots. Before I install the nut strips though, I want to take the wing mount and using the forward hole, line it up with the forward hole in the frame and clamp it in place. Okay, double checking that it is flush with the hole and tight to the frame. Take a scribe or stylus and scribe the holes, the two vertical holes, into the paint on the frame. You'll be drilling these holes out large enough to clear the welded nuts on the back of this wing mount. So this hole you'll simply drill for the diameter of the nut and the weld, and this hole you'll need to grind out the equivalent diameter to compensate for the weld on the flange of the nut. Also, this is a good time to go ahead and cut off the exhaust hanger from the body mount. This will be in the way when you install the bumper. Before you start to install your cross member, you want to measure the distance from the fourth hole in the frame, from the rear of the frame forward, to the edge of the frame. This dimension should be 412 millimeters. I've killed 100 millimeters on my tape here, and on this particular truck it is 512. So it's 412 millimeters from this hole, the edge of this hole, to the end of the frame. If your truck has a different dimension there, and some of the later ones do, stop and contact me and we'll talk about how to proceed. That dimension determines the fitment at the front of the bumper as well as the rear of the bumper. Another critical measurement is your body lift height. If you take your tape or ruler and put it right against the body where your body lift puck meets the body, and measure down to the bottom of your mount, or the top of the body mount on the frame, that dimension should be exactly 2.5 inches. If yours is not, contact me and let's discuss that. Okay, here I've prepared the frame for plug welding the nut certs once they are bolted in. What I've done is I've measured 25 millimeters in from this face to find the center line of the third and fourth frame holes, and then I've measured in 15 millimeters from the edge of the holes in both directions and drilled a hole for plug welding. This will allow me to be assured that the nut strip will not move when I'm installing the bumper, and if I have to remove it for servicing later. Also in this shot, you see that I have enlarged the holes for the wing mounts. On my particular truck, I enlarged these holes to 7/8 of an inch to make sure that that gave me plenty of room for the weld around the nut flange. before you install your nut strips, I would take a pry bar or something similar, long screwdriver, and go ahead and clean out the debris from your frame. It's going to be incredibly hard. It'll be incredibly hard to get that stuff out, any residue that's in there afterwards. So this is a good opportunity to go ahead and take some compressed air and blow that out. Stick a vacuum nozzle in there, whatever you have to do to scrape all the loose and flaky stuff out and get rid of it. Once that's done, you can install the nut strip. I recommend painting these before you install them. Go ahead and leave some clean metal on the very end for the welding clamp, and leave clean metal where the plug welds will hit the nut strip. It can be installed. And plug welded at this point. You definitely want to tighten this all the way down though, make it nice and tight to the frame so that it sits right up against the area you're going to weld. This is a good opportunity to mention that the factory crossmember for the spare tire is now irrelevant after the rear crossmember is welded into the frame. So there's really no reason not to go ahead and cut it out and get rid of it. On this truck, I've already cut it out. I need to clean this stuff up. This is the residual from a quick cut to remove it. That's something you would want to do at this point before you weld the rear crossmember in, while the access is easy. Additionally, a couple of interesting items on this particular truck. If you look to the driver's side, you'll see one half of my panhard correction kit. This vehicle runs a 2-inch lift, so it does not need the frame side drop. So the axle side lift corrects the geometry in the rear. The two rectangular structures on the crossmember there are the front mounts for the F-150 fuel tank. This truck is getting a fuel tank conversion to the rear. And in blue, that's a 3D printed prototype of my 4-link upper link tower. I'll be releasing a 4-link kit for the 3rd Gen 4Runner in the future. This rear bumper design came about as a solution to a problem presented by my F-150 fuel tank relocation kit, which requires a rear crossmember both for fuel tank protection and to act as the rear hangers for the tank. None of the aftermarket bumpers at the time would mount with a rear crossmember welded into the frame, so I designed my own. This is that crossmember. These T-slots are for the upper tank straps, and this ledge here is the mount for the lower tank straps. If you're not relocating your tank, none of that matters to you. However, you have 1/2 of the fuel tank relocation kit on your truck at this point. So that's an option for you in the future. To install this, once you've verified that your frame length is 412 millimeters, as we talked about before, simply insert this into the frame ends until it's flush with the two sides of the frame. Once you're comfortable that these edges are flush, grind a V here and here on both sides for weld penetration, and a V here as well, and then weld those 3 areas and here and here. You may also drill 2 holes here and plug weld from the outside. The more the merrier. This is the primary strength of the rear bumper, so you can't overdo this part. Once your rear crossmember is welded to the frame, you're ready to start assembling the bumper.